Hey guys, I'm going to give a presentation over the Amish culture and how they perceive death and their funeral and their rituals and all the little things they do when it comes to death and how their thought process is. The Amish is a religion of an Anabaptist, which is Protestant and Christians who believe in adult baptism. The Amish are people who grow all their food, who they live on the rural areas of farms, and they don't use electricity half the time, and they're very old school. They don't believe in everyday things that we use. They don't have cars. They still live horse and buggies, but they grow their own food and they live out on rural areas, and so they're very big into church and God and everything about that. So it was really interesting to learn more about how they perceive death. Amish death, they do not dwell on the tragic aspect of the death. They do not dwell on the thought that someone has died and that they are gone forever. They don't believe that they are tragically, whatever happened, and that's what the quote, "God willed that it be so," comes from. They believe that God intended for this to happen and to not be so sad and upset by it because it was God's plan. If children die, it is a strong conviction that they were taken by God. It's their belief that God wanted that child, because they don't believe the children would be dying so young if it wasn't for God. Amish speak very frank about the death. It is very common among people and animals, so they experience death all the time, and they're not I won't say scared of it, but they're not terrified of the death, because they see it all the time. Preparing for the funeral was, I think, the most interesting thing by far with the Amish and how their customs to a funeral. They normally have 4 friends that are close to the deceased that are chosen to be the pallbearers, and if you're chosen to be a pallbearer, you help hand make the casket from normally pine wood. You help dig the hole in the cemetery to help bury the body, and then they help pick out the clothes and everything. And it's kind of interesting what they wear, because typically in most funerals you go to it's something they love to wear. Well, the Amish, the men are always in white vests, white pants, and a white shirt. The women are dressed in a long white dress. They have a cap and an apron. And normally the cap and the apron is the same as their wedding day that they wore, which I thought was really interesting that they're buried in what they wore on their wedding day. They also will be embalmed sometimes. Different Amish communities believe in different things, but most of the time they are embalmed. And then they wear no makeup, especially the women. There's no makeup on their faces. It's very plain and very normal. Another interesting thing about the Amish is how they view the body. In normal, kind of everyday society, you go to a visitation where you are able to view the body. Well, the Amish have 3 different viewings. So they have 3 different chances to see the body before the burial. The first one is after they have died, and if they were embalmed, they go back to their home, and they set up the casket in the home, and they move all the furniture, and they kind of showcase the body and let people come in and out of the house to say goodbye to the body. The next one is at the funeral home, or at the funeral. So if wherever the funeral is, which can be at a barn, it can be at anywhere, they can see the body then too. And then before they bury the body, they open the casket again, and you can say another goodbye there. So I thought that was really interesting about one of their customs. The funeral is very kind of traditional. It takes place in either a barn, church, or outside the home, as I mentioned earlier. One thing they do have that's kind of different is they have 2 ministers present, and they both deliver a sermon to the mourners. They are always there, and they help. They each take time to speak about it. And then the minister will pray while everyone says their last goodbyes to the deceased. So they normally say their name, their birthday, their death, and they say a prayer while everyone is saying their last goodbyes, which I thought was kind of interesting. The funerals are very modest and simple. There's no pictures, there's no flowers, there's no singing or songs. It's just praying and then and just burying the body is kind of just what the funeral is and takes place of. The funeral is really just focused on the goodness and the praise for God rather than the person. They're just thanking God for the time with the person and celebrating God. After the funeral, at the church, the home, wherever it took place, they load up into their buggies and head to the cemetery. It's just like how we do it, how everyone follows each other, follows the body all the way to the cemetery. They just do it in their horse and buggies to wherever their hole has been dug to place the body. They can have anywhere from 300 to 500 guests that attend the funerals and burials, as they are all very tight-knit community and everybody knows everybody, and it's just very important for everyone to be there and to be supportive. Like I mentioned in the earlier slide, there is no songs, there's no flowers or pictures present at the burial either. It's very plain, it's very saying one last goodbye type of situation. The deceased is rested into the ground by the pallbearers. They use like a rope to put him down there, and then the family members throw dirt on top before leaving to signify their last goodbye. After the funeral, it's kind of very typical for how a lot of people do it. They all return to the house, church, barn, or wherever they gathered earlier and eat a big meal together. It's a big potluck meal that everyone helps provide food for. They are there telling stories, they're laughing, they are celebrating the good times that they had with this person. They're trying to really not focus on the bad of the situation of losing this person, but focus on the good things that happened, the good things they did, and the funny stories they all have of this one person, and to come together and to really just kind of build around the family that lost their loved one and be helpful and just to be there. Like it says, they tend to focus on the good versus the bad of the situation. They just want to have good memories of this person and to love and celebrate them. The family grief process for after the funeral and after everything's over is very interesting because it's very different. The family of the deceased will wear all black for up to a year to signify their mourning process, which is very unique. Most people will wear like darker colors for maybe a couple weeks, but I feel like a year is a long time to continue to wear black. After death, the grieving still occurs. Women tend to wear the black, and the amount of time spent in the black shows the closeness of the relationship to the person lost. So friends will wear it for a long time, and the family will do it for up to a year. The friends and family also come to the deceased family's home to spend time with them on Sundays for a year. They will do it every single Sunday, and sometimes even during the week, to be with the family and the really close friends to the deceased, to make sure that they're okay and to be with them and to support them in the time of grief that they are experiencing. The Amish grief is very private. No emotion is shown. They don't cry at the funerals. They don't outwardly express how they feel to everybody. The Amish do believe in afterlife. They believe that there is something out there. They believe that they go somewhere after their death. They didn't really specify what they believe happens in the afterlife, but they believe in a afterlife. They do not pray for the souls of this deceased. They think that whatever happened on earth is what sets them into their decision. There's no praying for their soul to go to heaven or their soul to go to hell. It's just they do not pray for their soul because it's already been decided. The Amish hope for a life well lived will lead to salvation in heaven, so they're hoping that they live a good enough life to go to heaven, that whatever happened. Nothing will change it now once that they're gone. This is my presentation on the Amish and how they perceive death and afterlife and their cultural traditions, that they celebrate the life of the dead and they don't dwell on the sadness of it. They grieve in their private, but they also know how to move on with their lives afterwards. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this helped.